But we're going to talk a little bit about the Lions. Today's Fact or Fiction. Austin, what do you got?
Fact or fiction, the Lions secondary will be fine.
Oh, fiction. Fiction. And when you posed this, I was the one who suggested let's talk a little bit about the Lions secondary. And where this stems from is the fact that I don't want to go into super great detail about this, but Nolan Bianchi did a really remarkable job reporting on this, friend of the program for Chris and Company. Reported on this a few weeks ago, and it's picked up more steam regarding a potential legal situation with Terrion Arnold. It is potentially, like I said, very serious. I don't want to come on here and bash a guy. I really think, especially in this world of social media, we have a tendency to make up our minds on people before the truth ever really comes out. So I'm not coming on here saying that Terrion Arnold is guilty of anything. That's one incident. But let's take it one step further. We don't know if Terrion Arnold's any good, okay? Just at football in the NFL yet. We saw him play a little bit better, but let's not forget the first year and a half, this guy was, if he wasn't the lowest rated corner on PFF, like he was bottom 3, right? And the reason I'm focusing specifically on the secondary is because when you look at what's not gone right at points for the Lions over the last few seasons, and I point specifically to the playoff losses to the 49ers, the playoff loss to the Commanders that we were at Ford Field. You know, a lot of people talk about Ben Johnson's game plans and, oh, they did this wrong. They turned the ball over. And they did. Look, Goff made mistakes in both those games through 2 or 3 picks in the Washington game, including a pick 6. They scored 31 points. Like, what impacted them in those games is that every time they needed a stop, very often on third down, they couldn't get it. Pass rush has something to do with that, but in both the 49er and Commanders games, whether it was Purdy or Jaden Daniels, their ability to get out of the pocket, to scramble, created issues for the Lions. But the fact is, I think, and this is where it gets frustrating, I think Brad Holmes noticed that problem. And I think that's why Brad Holmes made the decision to lock up Kerby Joseph and to keep Brian Branch around and say, we have this 1-2 punch of ball hawking safeties that are going to be in this league for a decade. I mean, we got it wrapped up, and Terrion Arnold at that point doesn't even need to be perfect. He just needs to be a suitable DB. And sometimes this game is just very cruel and unfair, and it's cruel and unfair to GMs, because I think if you were to ask any other GM how they would have gone about this, I think they would have applauded Brad Holmes for the way that he went about assembling this roster and assembling the secondary. But the fact is, everything, and I hate to be so negative about it, but everything that I've heard coming out of Kerby Joseph's camp is vague and or negative. It's a lot of, we'll see. Okay, it's going to be, it reminds me a lot of pitchers who have an elbow strain, and we hear about, well, they're throwing off the mound now. Okay, they're playing catch now. And then a few weeks later, you hear about they're getting Tommy John. Like, it is very clear that there's a potential degenerative knee problem. And if that is the case, well, no fault of Kerby, that completely changes his trajectory as a player. That makes him a completely different football player. It might not make him a guy who's even stable enough to see the field. And with Branch, look, he's already going to be out for a good chunk of this season. He'll probably be back, assuming things go right, November? Maybe Achilles injuries, I think, are about a year. So, maybe October. I mean, if everything goes swimmingly, but it's Achilles injury. We've seen those devastate athletes over the last few years, whether it's NBA or NFL. The reason I'm bringing all of this up is that you have an offense that I still think, flaws and all, and I hope that the O-line sees improvements, I still think is a offense capable of making a very deep run in the playoffs. I really do think that. I think in the years in which those back-to-back years where they made it to the NFC Championship and then the next year they win 15 games, they had an offense that was historically good and a defense that would force turnovers and was just good enough at a lot of points. They would bend, they wouldn't break under Aaron Glenn, and they found a way to win a lot of games doing that. But they also had a lot of individual talent, and whether it's because of Kerby Joseph's knee, whether it's because of Brian Branch's Achilles injury, or whatever the heck is going on with Terrion Arnold, what you need to fix your defense, especially your secondary, and I know they've made some moves. You bring Yasin back, okay, sure, but I just don't think it's enough that you can solve in one offseason. And the offensive core isn't getting any younger. So I hate to be so down and pessimistic about it, but when I look at this Lions team right now, do I still see a competitive product? Yeah, absolutely. A team that has this kind of offense and these weapons is always going to be able to score points. But I think it's something that the media has pointed out here in this state, and I think they're correct. It's a lot of lateral movement. You've made changes, but you haven't necessarily made changes for the better. And I don't know if you've done enough to address, if not your biggest issue, one of your top two biggest issues, which is your secondary. And that issue is only going to kind of expand as the future becomes more and more uncertain for Joseph and Branch. So we'll be back. Tough to look. It's difficult, but some we had to address there as the Lions continue to kind of just flounder here, unfortunately, during this offseason.